Hi everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, which is going to be the raw and unfiltered stories of my property deals, the strategies, mistakes, and numbers behind my property portfolio. So I've probably said that for those that followed my journey, is that I've been involved in property 24 years full time. And in tonight's session, I'm going to tell you the things that no one else tells you, which is everyone always gives you the happy clappy and the things that go great. Now, tonight, I'm going to be telling you the things that have gone wrong in my property portfolio and my journey, but more importantly, how we overcame them, because that's a key thing. And what you need in your toolbox to make sure that you don't go through the same mistakes. So, where did it all begin? Here you can see me on screen for those that are on the webinar. Me as a young 5-year-old guy, 5-year-old young gentleman, and I'm going to tell you a bit of a story because my parents came over from Pakistan, as many Asian parents did. And they came over with pretty much nothing. So they came over here to get a better life and to source a better life for them, families, and also for a better life for their children. So on screen, you can see that here I am, 5 years old. And what I didn't realize is that in the UK at the time, that normal families lived in a full house. When I say full house, they lived on the first floor and the second floor of their house. Now, I'm one of six siblings, so I'm one of six children that my mom and dad. And I knew nothing other than to grow up in what we now know as a HMO. So let me just tell you a little bit about that. Now, my mom and dad, bless them, they were very financially aware. When we say financially aware, when they came over from the country, they came over with nothing. Now, what they wanted to do to make sure that if they bought a house, they were able to live in that house and also be able to afford that house. So what they did, and you might call them visionaries, you might call them in actually pioneers of the HMO market. But what they did do was they rented out all the rooms on the first floor. So just imagine a full family of 8 living on the ground floor of a mid-terrace property in Wolverhampton. Whilst on the first floor, there were 4 complete strangers, shall we call them, living above us. Now, why did we do that? First of all, my father came to the UK with £10 in his pocket, and he wanted to ensure that he succeeded and he was able to fulfill the need to support not only us, but also his family back home in Pakistan. Now, this was for me, my real experience of property investing. So you could say that I've been a property investor all my life because all I've ever known is tenants living above us, collecting rent, deal with maintenance issues, dealing with everything that came with becoming a landlord and a property investor. So as a teenager, probably one of my first jobs was every Friday evening was to go around and collect the rent from the handful of properties that my father acquired by this point. And what this taught me was building property portfolio was literally one of the best ways to secure financial freedom. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not all been plain sailing. I've had some catastrophic fails and some exceptional highs in my property career. And tonight, what I'm going to be doing is going through all the things that went wrong because I believe property investors, believe it or not, only tell us the good things. They only tell us the things that went well. Tonight, I'm going to tell you the things that went wrong and more importantly, how we overcome them. Now, it's fair to say that there's nothing special about me. And the reason why I say that is because I wasn't particularly bright at school. I was what I consider the practical kid that could build stuff and figure things out by doing it by myself. But you put me in front of a book or you put me in front and ask me to do an exam, I'm going to fail. I'm definitely going to fail. I'm going to panic. Now, any of you in the room that actually feel like that? And did you go through education and did you fail? Just purely because you probably read a page in a book and nothing went in. Nothing went in. I could have read the same page 2 or 3 times. And for me, it was just like a blank page. It just wouldn't go in. Not to say that I'm not intelligent, but my brain works slightly differently. So I really struggled with exams all throughout my education as a child, going into teenage years, going through to university. I really struggled. Now, I hated revising, and ultimately, guess what? That led to me leaving schools with no GCSEs whatsoever. So the reason why I tell you this story is because you may be academic, but that does not mean that you're going to be successful. Equally, you may not be academic, but that does not also mean that you're not going to be successful. If anything, I'm probably the testament to say I'm probably the least academic person, but here I am to tell the tale of how I've turned, let's call it an ugly duckling, into a golden goose. Now, that isn't how my story ends because pretty much after I left university, um, I had to go through alternative paths. So I left uni with a degree in international business management with international marketing management. And you kind of thinking, well, where does that lead into property? The honest answer is it doesn't. But what I had to do was I had to use some of the skills that I learned with management, and I had to turn that failing property portfolio that my father owned into something that was now going to become quite a large portfolio. And then I started to progress it. So, what we're going to be talking about tonight. Now, I think that for everyone to succeed, you've got to kind of look at the concept and the principles that have made other successful people, property investors, succeed. And what I've done is that I've gathered all that info and I've applied it to what I do daily. Now, tonight's session is all about the Elite Property Tribe and how that builds on the 5 principles and showing you how I've applied it in every property deal. Now, so we've got knowledge. The 5 buckets are knowledge, skill, network, resources, and reputation. So let's just go through those again. Knowledge, skill, network, resources, and reputation. Now, there's no hiding it. I'm a big fan of people who are very successful in their field. One of the people that I kind of look up to is someone that I'm sure you've probably heard of, a guy called Stephen Bartlett, who is the diary of the CEO. And I listen to his podcast and I'm really, really excited. And, I get completely, yeah, when I listen to it, it really lifts me up. And I came across a principle that resonates very much with everything that I do. And I'm going to tell you more about how that will help you achieve your goals. Now, I just want you to think, and if you can, comment in the box, or if you're in the Q&A, if you're on the webinar, or if you're watching live on social media, just comment in the box below. Now, I want you to think of your reason why. What's the reason why you're here today? What's the reason why you woke up this morning? What's the reason why you went out to work? What's the reason why you're lying in bed at night? And what's the reason? And for me, my reason, generally speaking, is my children, my wife and my children, making sure that they live the best life that they can. And I think I've done a pretty good job of that. But for many of you, it will range from things like building a nest egg for your future. It will become, uh, it will be about becoming financially free, making your family financially stable. It could be paying off your mortgage, could be paying off your debt, could be having surplus funds to enjoy luxuries like holidays and all the other things. I'm not going to mention things like cars, watches, whatever it may be, whatever your thing is, that's fine. But that's your goal. That's what you want to achieve. It could be retiring your parents, or alternatively, it could be retiring on the 11th of November 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Now, there's a story behind that. And this date is the day that I'll become financially free after 18 years of hard work, a story which I tell actually in my book called Boom, Bust and Back Again. Now, let's quickly go through the 5 buckets and what we're going to do with every example that I give you. So I've pulled together a list, or should say, a showcase of properties which were deemed to fail. They should have failed. But when we look at the 5 buckets, and when I apply these principles to each of these properties, you'll understand why these 5 buckets are so important. So first of all, let's talk about knowledge. Knowledge is which was about understanding the market trends, knowing the property evaluations and investment strategies are crucial to what I've been doing in this in-depth educational research, which ensure that it allows me to make well-informed and confident decisions when I make them. Now, when it comes to bucket number two is skill. Now, we've all got a skill. Everyone's got a skill, but I like to try and apply the knowledge effectively. Now, what I often do is I ask my mentees to ensure that they have hands-on training in negotiating, property management, and financial analysis, equipping them with practical skills necessary to excel in the property market. Now, third one, everyone's heard of the cheesy saying that your network is your net worth. Well, it actually isn't far from the truth, because building connections with industry professionals has opened doors to exclusive opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. Now, you got to remember that I've built a network over 24 years. Now, the good thing is that my mentees actually have the ability to tap in my network all within the space of 5 minutes. They make a call to me, I put them in contact with someone, and it works really well. Now, what I often do with my mentees, connect them with a vast variety of experienced investors, agents, financial brokers, financial advisors, and that could be things like tax, it could be to do with financial accounting. And what this is doing is helping them foster relationships that could propel them into their property journey. Now, going on to bucket number four, which is resources. Now, when it comes to resources, I don't have a problem, but my wife does say that I'm quite pernickety when it comes to organization. My wife often laughs about looking at my inbox and seeing how many folders have I actually got for every single property. So in every single property, I've got the property address, I've got who the utilities are with, I've got to say have we got a folder for legals, and we've got a folder for accounting, I've got a folder for the bank. Now, it's just the way that my mind works. Now, one of the things that I pride myself on is that I give people access to the right tools and assets to streamline the investment process. I'm very much a systems guy. I didn't know I was actually a systems guy, but believe it or not, I put a system in place for a system in place for a system, and it works really well. I've created investment calculators, I find market analysis software and legal documents to support what I've been doing to make it a seamless process. Now, finally, the last one is reputation. Now, establishing a solid reputation in the property market is, without a doubt, really important. And the reason why I say that, and I've seen in the property industry how many people come and go. Now, I've always said that property is a marathon, it's not a sprint. Now, for those that treat it as a sprint, they burn out very, very quickly. They're here today, they're gone tomorrow. Now, for those that are here to run the marathon, believe it or not, I'm still here 24 years in. 24 years in, and I know lots of people who've been 30, 40, 50 years in the actual property industry because they're running the marathon. They're not going out and sprinting. They're not burning themselves out. To take it, you ever heard a story about the tortoise and the hare? We very much, shall I call ourselves veterans now, are the tortoises. The hare, or the hares, shall we say, are the people that come, they want to do everything, they want to see instantly, they want to become a millionaire overnight. And guess what? They always end up burning out. So you've got to protect your reputation. You've got to understand what is it that you're doing, who is it benefiting, and making sure that no one gets burned along the way. Okay, so let's keep moving on. So just for the people on the webinar, can you just confirm that you can see all the slides, please? That'd be phenomenal if you could. That'd be phenomenal. So let's keep moving on. So every property investor, when they come into property investing, believe it or not, I have created what I consider is a roadmap. So you've got 5 steps. So everyone starts off with pretty much like deal sourcing, And the way that I've treated property is that you've got to work on a short term, a medium term, and a long term goal. And it's very simple: short, medium, long, short, medium, long. Now, the short term goal is the thing that we need to get us out the ground. We need sufficient cash flow now. Building cash flow into our business today is going to allow us to survive today. Without cash flow, our business cannot survive. And everyone can tell you that. That's no secret. You need cash flow today. Going off and building generational wealth from the outset means that you're going to fail because you're not going to have sufficient cash flow to fund or fuel the fire. So everyone starts off with what we consider deal sourcing. When we say deal sourcing, let me just quickly go through. Okay, brilliant. So everyone's kind of saying that they can see my slides. Fantastic. Okay, so everyone starts off with deal sourcing. Now, for those that don't know what deal sourcing is, let's just pull ourselves the glorified estate agent. When we say the glorified estate agent, we've got a seller on one side, we've got a buyer on the other side. Now, the deal sourcer goes and puts the buyer and seller together. Guess what? That's what estate agents do. But the difference is that we as property investors understand properties. We also understand property investors. Now, what we try and do is we try and look at the property, or what I teach people to do is look at the property and look at the different cash flow models that it can produce. Because if we can do that and we can package that and we can sell that property as a deal, ultimately, everyone's going to win. The property investor, the person that's selling the property is going to be able to sell the property. That's a big win for them. The person buying the property is going to be able to run the property as, let's say, HMO or a service accommodation or a specific strategy. And ultimately, what's going to happen is that they're going to buy the property. That's a win. So we've got win and we've got win. Now, the other thing is that you, as a property sourcer, because you're charging a fee for this service to the buyer or the seller, you can't charge both, by the way. Ultimately, what will happen is that you will be making money in that transaction. So you have taken the place of the estate agent, and it's a win-win all round. Now, one of the key reasons for my success in properties, because I've known how to diversify. So I've looked at short-term goals. I've looked at the medium-term goals. I've looked at my long-term goals, and I've built it. Remember what I said about the marathon? The marathon has been built along the roadmap. So we started off with deal sourcing, but deal sourcing doesn't have to stop there. It doesn't mean that just because you move from a beginner into, let's say, an intermediate, that you stop doing deal sourcing. You keep going deal sourcing because this is the one that keeps producing you short-term cash flow. You use the short-term cash flow to either then start acquiring properties, which is step number two, either on a rent-to-rent basis or taking on lease options, which then starts to produce you more short-term cash flow because it's producing you monthly recurring income. So we've got short-term cash flow from deal sourcing. We've got recurring income now from the rent-to-rent portfolio, which this cash flow now and this income should then take you onto your medium-term goals. Your medium-term goals should be looking at about now start to acquire property. Acquire property in the form of, and lots of people then go straight into buy-to-let and HMO. HMO is what we consider a house of multiple occupation. Now, from doing HMOs, you start to become a little bit more experienced. By this point, you're probably a couple of years in the game. And then you then start to think, well, in actual fact, I'm running these properties, but I also wanted to try and flip properties. When we talk about flip properties, we're talking about potentially purchasing the property, refurbishing it, and then sell it back on for a profit. So we're making cash flow, we're making generational wealth now, because again, making short-term cash flow from deal sourcing, we're making recurring income from rent to rents, and we're then acquiring HMOs, which is then going to allow us to build generational wealth. And then that takes us on to the refurbishments. And now the refurbishments you're going to buy, you're going to refurb, and you're going to either sell or you're going to refinance against, a new value and get all your money back out. And I'm just giving you this as an overview because I can show you what can actually happen. And then ultimately, what we'll end up doing is that because you've become more experienced and you've got the knowledge, you've got the skill, you've got think of all the five buckets, you've built up a reputation, you've got your people as your power team, you've got the skill, you've got the knowledge, and it's working for you, you then go off and start doing larger developments where you may take a piece of land and you might erect a block of building, a block of apartments on it, or you may build a small development of houses, whatever it may be. Now, I'm going to show you over the next couple of slides as to how it's done really well, but also some of the issues that you may come across. So, apologies, but I don't say apologies, but the next few examples that I'm going to give you are all based around the Midlands because this is to do with my property portfolio. Now, here we go. So there's a mid-terrace. We'll start with the small projects because I believe everyone can do this. Everyone, regardless of knowledge and regardless of skill set, can actually do this deal. Now, you can see that the picture in the property was a 2-bedroom mid-terrace property. Now, it's not in the best location of Wolverhampton. I'm not going to suggest that it is. I'm not going to say that all my properties look like Buckingham Palace and they're show homes. No, they're not. Some of them are just standard 2-bed mid-terrace properties. Now, what happened was that I bought this property, but I had no intention of just keeping it as a single let property because single let properties are very limited on the income that they can produce. So I bought this property and I had the vision of converting it into 2 flats. So one on the ground floor, one on the first floor. And the reason why I thought I'd do that is because as a mid-terrace house back then, the rent would have achieved circa around £500 a month. However, as 2 one-bedroom flats, it could have produced approximately the best part of £800, which is 400 and 400, 400 on the ground floor, 400 on the first floor. Now, the reason why I did that is because I thought, okay, because it's going to allow me, and my rationale behind it is if on a single let, if the family vacates the property, believe it or not, we're not going to get any income from that property now. However, as 2 flats in there, we're going to have a tenant on the ground floor and we're going to have a tenant on the first floor. It's very rare that both tenants will have left at the same time. So it's very rare that that property will stop producing a form of income. Now, I put in so we purchased the property, we went in and put in for planning permission. And guess what? The one thing I didn't envisage, and one thing that people actually take for granted, is that planning permission did not get granted. We actually got refused. And the reason why we got refused is because the local neighbour, the one on the left, she turned around, she goes, Arsh, no chance. You know, I want this house to be a single let, and I only want it to be a single let. Now, she put in quite a large petition. She went up and down the street. She got lots of people to sign the document saying, we don't want this house to be, a block of flats. And ultimately, the council said, okay, it's rejected. Now, what happened after that was that I took the notice, I took the rejection notice. I thought, okay, we can't run it as 2 flats now. However, this was before Wolverhampton City became an Article 4 location. Now, for those that don't know what Article 4 is, it means that you could have, before Article 4 came into play, we could have converted that house into a HMO without needing planning permission. So I said to the neighbour, I said, you know what, unfortunately, okay, I get that you don't want 2 tenants. Now we're going to have 4. And I'm not going to say, I didn't say this in a malicious way, but ultimately I didn't want it to run as a single let. I bought this property as a single let, it wouldn't work. So you've got to always have a plan B and a plan C. The reason why I'm telling you this is because you always have to have another exit strategy. Because as a single let, I would have left all my money in the deal, which means that it would have stopped me from going forward. Now, remember what I said, going back to the buckets. Bucket number 1, knowledge. Bucket number 2, skill. Bucket number 3, bucket number 4, resources. And bucket number 5, reputation. So bucket number 3 was network. So I was utilizing bucket number 3 with my network and bucket number 4 with my resources. I was also utilizing bucket number 1 and 2. My knowledge and my skill taught me that even though I couldn't get 2 flats, I still had a backup plan of running it as a HMO. Now, I don't mind saying that, as a HMO, it actually produces more money. It's now a 4-bed HMO that now produces £24,000 a year. As 2 flats, it would have produced the best part of 10,000. However, running a HMO obviously is more management intensive as opposed to two flats. And you've probably got a better chance of getting it valued as a commercial valuation based on two flats as opposed to a four-bed HMO. So that was my rationale behind going for two flats. Does everyone understand that? Again, comments box, just let me know if you're watching this live. Put in the comments box as to whether you think this is right or not. Would you have done this? Would you have done this? Would you have stuck it to a single let? Would you have tried to go for planning for for two flats, or would you have then gone straight for the four-bed HMO? Now you got to remember that there are different cash flow models for each one. You've got different cash flow model for two flats. You've got different cash flow model for a HMO. You've got a different cash flow model as a single let. There's no right or wrong. It all depends on you and also your appetite to risk as well. So just put in the comments box below, if you can, as to what you would have done with this property. Now we're going to go slightly higher scale on this. Now let's go to West Bromwich. Now I always knew that if I bought something in West Bromwich, it was always doomed for failure from day one. I'm a Wolves fan, by the way. So, buying something in West Brom was a big move. But anyway, we keep moving on. So went to West Bromwich and we actually bought a 17-bedroom care home. And at the time, I think we bought it for £450,000. Now, I don't mind saying this is the one that nearly killed me. Nearly killed me. When I say killed me, nearly bankrupted me. I don't mind saying, because this 17-bed care home, I bought it and we bought it because at £450,000, we had a tenant, or let's say a care provider in there that was paying approximately £60,000 a year. So from a yield point of view, from a return point of view, it made really good sense. It was producing us around a 15% return. Now, straight away in the comments, guys on the webinar, just say, so far, good deal or bad deal. Someone offered you a care home producing £60,000 a year, and you could buy it for £450,000. Was that a good deal? Now, for me, I thought that was actually a good deal. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because they signed up to a 10-year lease. When we purchased it, they signed up to a 10-year FRI lease. Now, for those that don't know, a FRI lease is what is called a full repairing and insuring lease. Now, year one, everything was going fine. And we thought, you know what, this is a really good deal. Really, really good deal. Now, year two, guess what? The care facility, or let's call it the provider, actually went bust. And now I thought, oh man, okay, I'm out of area. I'm not in an area that I'm fully familiar with. And now I've got a 17-bedroom property that is fully empty. And at the time, off memory, I think the mortgage payment was around off memory, I think the mortgage payment was around £3,000 a month. So we were now having a liability of £3,000 a month, which is £36,000 a year. Going back that this was, circa 2006. Now, instantly I panicked because I thought, okay, we've got a 17-bed care home. It's going to get vandalized. We're going to have a load of issues with it because I don't know the area. And more importantly, I went to lots of housing associations. They said, we can't touch it. It's too big. We went to lots of care homes who said, we can't touch it. It's not for us right now. We went to places like the YMCA. We went to local authority. No one wanted to touch it. So what are we going to do? Because what are we going to do now with this building? Everyone has told us it's not possible to do anything with. I had to go back to grassroots. Now, going back to the scenario where, let's say, with the two-bedroom terrace house. So I thought, okay, it's a 70-bed care home. Perhaps we can convert this into a HMO. I went through planning permission, and guess what? I got it converted into a 17-bed HMO. And we started to rent the rooms out, individual room by room. Now, the good thing with this, with a care home and a nursing home, the good thing is that there are lots of similarities. So every room had an ensuite, and there's lots of spare space. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because we then started to run it as a 17-bed HMO. I had to employ, well, one of the people that came to us to live in the property, he actually ended up becoming my caretaker in the building. Going back to my point that I said at the start, I like systems. Now, I don't want to really deal with 17 tenants individually. So what I did do is one of the tenants that actually lived at the top front of the building, left-hand side of the building, he was a guy called Paul. And ultimately, he became my caretaker. And what he did do, he managed that whole building for me. And he had a massive reduction in rent. And this actually now started to make sense. We're actually generating more income based on £400 per room. We were generating more income than what we were running as a care home. I thought, okay, this now starts to make sense. Now, because it was a care home previously, we had managers' offices, we had medical rooms, we had a large communal lounge. And I went to my architect, remember, going back to my bucket, which is my network and my resources. I said, guys, okay, we no longer need all this empty space. Can we convert more rooms out of it? And by looking at it, believe it or not, we've got an additional 6 rooms, and we've now converted it into a 23-bedroom HMO. But more importantly, each of the rooms are all fully self-contained. They've all got their own kitchenettes. They've all got their own en-suites. Now, this building generates in excess now of £150,000 a year. And this is in West Bromwich, just off the high street. This is one that I've owned. But the reason why I tell you about this is because if you ask me whether this was possible back in 2006, I was pushed into a really dark corner where we kind of had no choice but to do this. The original intention was to purchase this and run it as a care home. It was only by, when I say by someone's misfortune, where their company went into liquidation and we didn't get paid any rent, and we had to chase the owner on a personal guarantee, that we then decided to go to plan B and plan C. Remember, everyone told us that this would not work. Now, based on the fact that this now generates approximately £150,000 per year in income, we've had this valued at over £1.5 million. But I've got to say that in order for us to get this running as a HMO, we did have to spend approximately £70,000. And again, that was £70,000 at that time that we didn't have. So we had to go and raise. We had to go and raise and refinance some stock that we already had. So we were now going further, and we were having to leverage ourselves further on an asset that we didn't know was going to work. But it was a risk. But again, I went back to my buckets. Have I got the knowledge to do this? Have I got the skill to do this? Have I got the people? Have I got the network and the resources to do this? More importantly, people were looking at me as a reputation to see, could I make this happen? And I had to make it happen. Is everyone finding this interesting, by the way? Just give me a thumbs up. Just say a quick yes or no, because obviously, like I said, in property, everyone talks about all the great things that they're doing. No one really tells us about the bad things that happen to them. And we're going to go on to the next one. So let's now take you back into Wolverhampton. Let's take you back into Wolverhampton. Okay. Now, I've talked about this building quite a lot. So I've acquired recently a 20 office block in Wolverhampton, a 26 office block in Wolverhampton city centre. Now, when we took the building on, we did it as a straightforward lease option. It was a 3-year lease option, and there's some real reasons as to why I felt it would work better as a lease option as opposed to a straightforward purchase, because the owner at the time had very cheap finance. They were working on around a 2.5% to 3% interest rate, whereas if I had to go and buy it from the outset, it would have cost me around 10% on the interest level. So for me to utilize the existing mortgage and the existing mortgage rate made perfect sense. Now, what I didn't envisage is that during the 3 years, so I had to pay the owner some money up front because they needed some money, because they wanted some equity out of the deal. Now, We had it all tied up legally, so it all went through solicitors and all contracts were all drawn up and everything was fine. However, what I didn't envisage that we were going to have the building for 3 years on a lease option, and the plan was to increase the standard of the building. The plan was to increase the income of the building, and ultimately that was going to increase the valuation of the building. What I did not envisage is that I was going to go and do the work to the building and increase the income and increase the valuation. And then I get a call from a administration company. Can you imagine that you're just sat at your desk and you get a call from an administration company on your mobile phone saying, "Hi, is that Arsh?" Go, "Yes." And says, "Oh, okay, my name is Mr. X from so and so administrators." So, "Okay, hi, how are you?" Now they said, "Well, we understand that you've got a contract in place for," and then they've said the press works in Wolverhampton. I said, "Yes." I said, "How can I help? What would you like to know?" Said, "Oh, well, I'm not sure if you're aware, but Mr. X, who was the person that I was doing the deal with, has declared themselves bankrupt." I think, well, hang on. This could become very, very interesting because I've paid this person the best part of £100,000 based on an exchange of contracts. And instantly my stomach dropped. I thought, oh my goodness, I don't own the building. This person's now got £100,000, is now declared himself bankrupt. What we're going to do? I picked up the phone to my solicitor. I said, "Guys," I said, "I've just had this call from this guy. He's going to send me an email. uh, And apparently the owner's gone bankrupt. But I've just paid him £100,000. What we're going to do?" And basically, what happened was that the receiver now said to us, so he goes, "Oh," she goes, "we understand that you've done significant work to the building." I said, "Yes, we have." And he goes, "Have you got receipts to it?" And I said, "Yes, I have." Now, ultimately, when I took the building on, it was producing £45,000. Today, it's producing £124,000. Now, the reason why I tell you this story is because when the income increases from 45,000 to 124,000, because it's a commercial building, what happens is that the valuation also increases in line with the income. So can you imagine now that you're the receiver, you're the administrator, and you know that the value has increased on this building, and they're going to now turn around and say, "Well, in actual fact, this guy owes us 500,000, but we know now that the building's worth in excess of 1 million." They were all rubbing their hands together, thinking, "You know what? We're all going to get paid." Luckily, I turned around and said, "Not on my watch, guys. Not on my watch." And I don't mind saying we had lots, we had lots and lots of sleepless nights. When I say me and my solicitor, we had lots of sleepless nights over the next 12 months because the receiver now was challenging the fact that because I bought the building, or we agreed the deal at 520,000 and we had a valuation at 1.2 million, they were challenging that we bought the building undervalue. But I had to keep saying to these guys, it's only, I'm buying it at that price, but I've had to add the value. Go back to the buckets, the 5 buckets. I've had to apply my knowledge. I've had to apply my skill. I've had to use my network. I've had to use my resources. And I've had to build the stuff within my reputation, literally just to get this building up to £1.2 million. So what part do you not understand? Now, the reason why I'm telling you this story is because along your property journey, you are going to come across issues like this. Whether you're buying a property off an estate agent, the owner's not going to tell you some stuff, and there's going to be some stuff that comes out the woodwork. When you buy a property through an auction, there's going to be stuff that you don't see in the legal pack. There's going to be there's always going to be something on every single transaction. Now, the reason why I keep telling you this is because eventually we got this deal agreed and I bought the building at £520,000. However, I then managed to get it revalued at 1.2 million, which meant that I was allowed to refinance to get myself back. But there was a period of 12 months where we literally had to answer a million questions. So I always said that they came to me with 99 questions, but I had 100 answers. And it really, really was a difficult time. My solicitor said to me, he goes, "Oh, she goes, never put me in that position ever again." And I said, "Well, Dave," I said, "we're going to be doing creative deals for as long as I live. So there'll be scenarios where we have issues." So for those on the webinar, guys, just let me know, how many sleepless nights would that have gave you? How many, if you gave someone £100,000, and yes, it was secured in the way of an exchange of contracts, but now this person has had that money in their bank account and they've disappeared. And now they're saying to me, "Arsh, as far as we're concerned, we want that property." And I'm saying, as far as I'm concerned, this is my property. Now, let's move on to deal number 3, I think we're on. Maybe deal number 4. So we talked about the 2-bedroom terraced house. We talked about the 23-bed HMO. We talked about the 26 office block. Now, let's take it back into Wolverhampton City Centre. Now, for those that don't know, I've recently acquired this building. We're talking, I think it's 29th of November, 2024. This is the building that took me approximately 18 months to acquire. Now, as you're probably thinking, "Oh, man, come on, give yourself a break. 18 months to acquire a building." But believe it or not, when the deal's good, you stick in there. You really stick in there. So this was the property that I found through an agent and it hadn't sold. This was through a commercial agent. You can see the board in the picture. Now, in the meanwhile, whilst we were going through the legal process, there's something different about this property, and I'll tell you about it. Is that this was originally the former job centre in Wolverhampton. So, you know, where you go and sign on, when you used to go and sign on in person, you used to go into this building. And so it was the government that occupied the building. Now, the person that owned it, they didn't read the small print that in 6 months' time, the government, or should I say the job centre, had the ability to vacate the building. Now, if anything, COVID taught everyone that we can all work from home. And what the job centre did was, because they knew that they could work from home, there's no need for them to have office space anymore. And I've got friends that work in HMRC, I've got friends that work in the government, I've got friends that work in multinational national companies, and they're all working from home. So there's no need for anyone to have high street presence offices. So the job centre says, "Bye, Mr. Landlord, we no longer need to pay you £120,000 a year because all our guys are now working from home." Now, the reason why I'm telling you this is because this landlord then went from earning £120,000 in 1 year to zero. And in Wolverhampton City Centre, which is almost becoming like a struggling city, he was not going to rent that building anytime soon. So I turned around to him and said, "Guys, okay, I'm prepared to buy the building off you." Now, again, going back to my buckets, I knew exactly what I was going to do with this building. I had the knowledge and I had the skill and I had the people around me to make this happen. So I should tell you what I did with this building, believe it or not. And if I was to say that I bought this building off the owner by only putting in £1 as a deposit, would you believe me? Just give me a quick yes or no in the comments. Give me a quick yes or no. Let me know. Would you believe me if I said a yes or no? Because that's exactly what happened. I went to the owner and I said to him, "Guys, I understand that the property is empty. I understand that it's been empty for quite a while. I'm prepared to buy it off you at £1.5 million. However, I'm going to need you to lend me £1.5 million in order for me to buy the building off you for £1.5 million." Now, if I said this to you, if you were the owner, would you say, Arsh, okay, here's the money. Or would you say, Arsh, get lost, there's the door, don't let the door hit you on the way out? Which one would it be? A or B? Arsh, here's the money. That's option A. Option B is Arsh, get lost, there's the door. And put it in the comments box. If you're watching this live, put it in the comments below. Because guess what they said to me originally? They said, Arsh, get lost. And I said, that's fine. I said, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'll ask a question and you tell me what you think of it. So anyway, so Tally says B. We've got lots of people that are watching it online. Believe it or not, after they told me to get lost, they also then called me back and said, Arsh, okay, talk us through your proposal. And I said to them very clearly that what I am going to do is that you're going to lend me £1.5 million. I'm then going to buy the building back off you. I'm then going to increase the value of the building by going through a range of planning permission for certain things that I want this building to attract and achieve. I'm going to increase the value of the building. I'm then going to refinance the building. I'm then going to give you your £1.5 million back. How does that sound? Because again, let's go back to the bucket. The buckets, skill, knowledge, resources. I have them all to make this happen. I also have the reputation to make this happen. I can show that I've been doing this over 20 years to make this happen. And this is what we did. So we completed on this transaction. Took a long time to get over the line. Took 18 months to get over the line. And I don't mind saying this, that because the owner had certain things that they had to tie up with the job centre before they could hand over the clean title to me. But it doesn't bother me because it wasn't costing me anything. We knew the deal was going to be done. We'd already signed paperwork, heads of terms to confirm that the deal was not going anywhere else. For me, it was about just making sure it happened. And we got planning permission granted for 24 one-bedroom flats on the first and second floor. We also got planning for a 20-bed hotel within the building. And we've got 6 commercial shops on the ground floor. Now, we believe that evaluation will be within the region of £6 million. But if we were to just rent the building once it's fully developed, it should generate within the region between £550,000 and £600,000 a year. Now, if it's only cost me £1 to get involved in the deal, would you say now, good deal or bad deal? The reason why I'm telling you all this is because if someone like me with 0 GCSEs can do this, but I'd say a little bit streetwise, I'm sure everyone else who is a lot smarter than me can make this happen. So Bob says, what's the interest rate, Arsh? Okay, so I like that question, Bob. So believe it or not, what I said to the owners, so even though they were lending me the £1.5 million, it was at a very low interest rate, so 2% above base. 2% above base, which means that on average now, the interest rate is around just over 6.5%. Whereas if I went to get funding for this through a traditional bank, I'd be talking in excess of 10%, given that it's empty, it's been empty for such a long time. And, from my point of view, it would be financially viable. Now, the one thing I'm going to say to you is that there's another twist to the tail. I'm telling you what can go wrong. This could have fallen through many times throughout this process. However, also, I don't pay any interest for year one. I pay it at the end of year one. So I've got 364 days interest free. Or not, it's very hard to say interest free, but I pay the first year's rent at the end of year one, or the first year's interest at the end of year one. That's really quite cool. It means that I've got no holding costs. So now I need to develop it. I need to get it income generating so that I can refinance it and pay the owner back. And I've got this term in place for 30 months. And no one would be able to do it. When I say no one would have thought about this deal. And what I don't understand is that everyone should be able to do this deal. It's just about thinking about things differently. Now, I always say that it's about understanding and becoming a deal maker. Deal sourcing and being involved in property is about being a deal maker. Everyone, as long as you can look at a property, you should be able to look at it from multiple different angles. What is it now? What can it become? What are the steps that I need to go through to make it happen? And hopefully those four properties that I've just shown you, or believe it or not, yeah, the four properties, which was the mid-terrace property in Wolverhampton. We went to West Brom on the 23-bed HMO, the 26 office block in Wolverhampton, and now this multi-commercial use block in Wolverhampton. All properties that in theory should never have worked. If someone else came to do these deals, there's a very good chance that they would have failed. Now, going back to the buckets, I don't believe they'd fail with me because I've got the ability to fulfill these. Now, the reason why I'm saying this is because as part of everything that I'm doing this evening is to tell you about what the Elite Property Tribe is all about. Because the Elite Property Tribe, believe it or not, instills the 5 buckets into you so that every time you look at a property, you are going to win. You're going to be the deal maker and you're going to be the winner. So what the Elite Property Tribe, it's a coaching program. It takes your business from where it is now to where you want it to be, to being a highly successful investment or an investor. So I've created 52 modules of online in-depth training. And on top of that, I also do a fortnightly live deal clinic. So just give you an example. One of my mentees, every fortnight, they bring me a new deal. They say, Arsh, I'm looking at it from this angle. What do you see? Here's what I see. What do you see? Can we structure this deal differently? And what we do, we talk through it together. Because with my in-depth knowledge on industry and my in-depth knowledge of what I've been teaching for as many years, I also bring with me a network of like-minded property professionals to support and encourage us. So because the Elite Property Tribe, it's all about knowledge, it's about skill, it's about the resources, and all the 5 buckets. It's about you and your business. It's about working on exactly what you need to thrive. And with the network, the reason why people who try to go alone on their property journey struggle is because they don't have a network of individuals who can turn to make them accountable, who can share their experience, and who have had the ability to have a network of individuals that they can call on. Just to give you an example, my mentees can call me at any time, Monday to Friday, during working hours, to say, Arsh, I've looked at this. What do you think? What do you reckon? Or more importantly, one of the main highlights of the program is that you can allow me to help you negotiate the deal with you. Now, I'll give you lots of examples where someone's come to me and said, oh, okay, we've seen this deal. It's a below market value deal. And I've said, well, guys, we can structure a better deal here. I've jumped on the call with them and the owner, and we've done a better deal. And I do deals like this, believe it or not, now all over the world. Because the pain and the motivation remains all over the world. I've actually done a deal in Dubai as where I am now based on pain and motivation. Now, everyone thinks that Dubai is this land which is paved with gold. But believe it or not, we all bleed the same. We all bleed the same. And everyone will have pain and motivation. We've got to understand what the pain is. We've got to understand what their motivation is. And we've got to come up with a solution. And that's what I teach you. That is what I teach you. By having me in your network, I'm showing you how to understand what their pain and motivation is and how to put together a solution that creates a win-win scenario all around. Now, with the resources, so yes, you got me in your corner. Yes, you got me as your knowledge. Yes, you got me as your skill. But resources, I give you everything that you need as your resources, your spreadsheets, your legal documents. And on top of that, you've got me as your resource so that I can jump on the call. So hopefully, kind of by now, you've got the impression that I'm very much a systems guy. And what I like to have is the right tools and the assets to streamline any property investment and also the process to making the journey as easy as possible. Now, I appreciate that I've told you 4 property deals this evening that have not been easy. But believe it or not, if I didn't have the systems and the processes in place, they could have been a hell of a lot worse. More importantly, I wouldn't be here to tell you the tale. So in the 52 modules, you'll receive everything that you need to be able to build on your knowledge and apply it for every property that you look at. And what my mentees find is that the calculator is probably the best thing for them to use so that they can put in some very basic numbers, like the purchase price and the income that it's generating, and it will instantly tell you, is this a good deal or not? So, like I said, the EPT is about you and your reputation. It's about your network. It's about your skill. It's about having everyone in your place. So, for me, I'm going to say to you that the EPT is not a mentoring program. It's about business coaching. It's about having your commitment. Now, for me, I need your commitment because that means you showing up and having the right can-do attitude. I want you to create dedicated time in your week. I want you to have an open mindset. And I want you to have the ability to want to grow and develop your business. Now, the reason why I say that is because I'm going to give you tasks to do. This is not a normal program. I'm not afraid to say it. This program isn't for everyone. What I need is your dedication, commitment, and a mindset that is based on a can-do approach. I've established a solid reputation for being a guy that doesn't take no for an answer. Hopefully, the four case studies tell you that. But I'm a solutions-driven person who says that there's always a way to solve a problem. If anything, this webinar is showing you that some of the obstacles I've had to come across to get deals over the line. Once again, I want to stress that's not for everyone. But what I do want to stress is that for those who are truly dedicated to making that change, I can push you to certain limits that you didn't even think existed. Now, let's get straight to the point. To join the EPT, I do offer two options. So there's first of all, the cost of it is £5,000, which you can either pay in one payment or you can spread over 12 months. And the reason why I do that is because I want you to succeed. I want you to succeed, and I want you to be in a position where you're going to be making in excess of the amount that you've paid to join the Elite Property Tribe. More importantly, the key thing I want to do is give you confidence. Now, I always say to my mentees is that you have to keep repeating and become repetitive in what you're doing. The more you do it, the better you will become. The better you will become, the more confident you will become. The more confident you will become, the more the chance of deal that has the ability to say yes. If you only do something once, you're not going to be great at it. If you do it time and time and time again, you're going to be phenomenal at it. And guess what? It's like riding a bike. When you first get on it, it's a bit wobbly. You're going to fall off. Now, there's going to be two kinds of people. There's going to be one person that says, you know what, I'm not getting back on that bike. It hurt. My knees are grazed. My hands are grazed. And I can't do it. There's the other person that's going to say, you know what, I'm going to give it a second chance. And I had to go through this with my two daughters. And I refused to let my daughters actually say, you know what, Dad, I don't fancy it. I don't fancy getting back on the bike. They had to get back on that bike because I knew that if I could just get through to them and I can give them that confidence that in actual fact, yes, you fell off once, but you're not going to fall off again because you remember how painful it was. Believe it or not, they got so much better at it now. And they are cycling at a phenomenal speed. And this goes with everything in life. You've got to be able to put yourself in a position where you have the best people around you. Going back to my buckets, give yourself the ability to succeed. Give yourself the ability to get the knowledge, to have the skill, to create the network, to give yourself the resources, and ultimately build your reputation. Remember, you're running the marathon, you're not running the sprint. So the cost of it is £5,000. This is the last webinar in the series. So we're not running any more webinars in the series. So if you want to do this and you want to get moving, now's your time. Now, to get involved, there are 3 links. And what I will do for those that are on the actual watching the, for those actually watching the webinar is I'm going to put the links just in the actual chat or in the Q&A. And then what you can do is you can click on those. And if there's any questions on those, please feel free to ask. So whilst we do that, has anyone got any questions? I appreciate that it's saying that. Let me just have a quick look at what's going on. Show chat previews. Here we go. Has anyone got any questions? If so, put them in the Q&A. Okay, so Bob said it's been a very creative deal. So again, you've got to make sure that you're in a position where you can put yourself in the position where you can answer any questions because opportunities are going to come to you. And if you only look at it from a narrow and a tunnel vision, you're going to lose so many opportunities. Put yourself in that position where you're going to see so many opportunities and say, yes, okay, I like that. I like that. I like that. I'm going to buy that for myself. I'm going to package that for someone else. I'm going to deal source this one. I'm going to take this one on a rent to rent. And remember what we said, short term, medium term, long term. Where do these sit? So the short-term goals, the things that I'm going to generate income from today. The medium-term goals, things that I'm going to be able to generate over a 6 to 12-month period. The long-term goals, things that I'm going to be able to create generational wealth from. So this is what you can do within you and your property business. And what I'm going to say is that for those that are interested and they want to join the Elite Property Tribe, I'm going to just put in the chat a link. Now, in that link, it's going to have a link to actually be able to call me or book a call. Now, what this is, it's an actual call to discuss you and your, let's call it your skill set. What is it that you do now? Where are you now? Where would you like to be? And more importantly, how can the Elite Property Tribe get you there? So if you like the thought of that, it's a business coaching call. It's a understanding you. And so that I can understand to say, is this right for you? Is this right for you? Or is this not right for you? And off the back of that, let's see where this goes. Some of you may turn around and say, you know what, this is not for me. I don't get it. Where others can say, you know what, this has put the fire in my belly and we're ready to go. And we're ready to go to battle. And they're the ones that I want. So finally, we've got a couple of questions that's coming in. So let's just quickly say, Arsh, is a replay of this as I could only log in later. So yes, Harj, believe it or not, yes, there is a recording. And what I will do, I'll get it sent out to you tomorrow. So I really hope that helps. So if you want to have a quick chat with me, feel free to call me at my office tomorrow. So call me on 01902 773940. Let's have a chat. Let's see what we can do. Let's see what's right for you. But on that note, I really hope and believe it or not, we are fully on time. Really hope that you've enjoyed that session. Any questions, you can feel free to reach out. And then let's go from there. But I've really enjoyed it. I really hope it's taken me down memory lane, looking at some of these properties, thinking and almost like reliving the pain of some of them, like the 17-bed care home. Understanding that I spoke to Sandwell Council, spoke to YMCA, spoke to lots of local charities to say, do you want to take this property on? They said, no, 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 we're not. We don't think you're going to be able to succeed with this. We think, one person even said, stick it back in the auction. You might make your money back. You're going to lose some money if, as a worst case scenario. I refuse to believe it. Believe it or not, my own business partner at the time, he said, let's just get rid of it. Let's dump it. And I refused to believe that. I didn't want to believe that. And I'm so glad that we didn't, because my belief, my resources, and everything that I believed in, and the 5 buckets that I've learned to teach myself throughout that period allowed me to succeed. So on that note, guys, I really hope that you've enjoyed it. Oh, we've got some more questions. So Jay said, top man Arsh, well done. Thank you. Thanks for logging in, Jay. Hodge says, would you also please send a good mortgage broker you use? Yes, I've got a couple of good mortgage brokers that you can use, so more than happy to share them. So feel free to send me a message, send me an email. Actually, you've got my email, which is arsh@arshellahi.com. Send me an email and I'll send you the details. Well, on that note, guys, I wish you all to have a great weekend, have a great evening, the rest of the evening, and I'll speak to you all very soon. Thank you and bye-bye.